Hey, everybody, it's Leah Ray with Digital Trailblazer, and welcome to the Digital Trailblazer podcast bonus success path episodes. This is where we feature up and coming online entrepreneurs, see how they're beginning their journey, and walk with them through their first steps of building and growing a successful online business from the start. So, in today's episode, welcome, and I'm going to say Geoffrey, correct? Okay. I forgot to ask you pronunciation before we jumped on here. My apologies. But I've met with some people in
things, so it's all good.
Geoffrey or something a little bit different. So
Geoffrey, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So go ahead, introduce yourself and let our audience know what you're all about.
Thanks, Lee. Right. My name is Geoffrey Klein. I am a visual content producer, TEDx speaker, current best-selling author, and I am mostly someone trying to help people tell their story. That's the shortcut to what I do. I'm all about people communicating effectively by creating stories that are connect with their audience.
That's important. Interesting. Okay, so how did you get here? Like, what was your journey?
I definitely took a nonlinear path to here. So I studied English and sociology, and then I did work for a marketing genius named Seth Godin. Was my first job out of college.
Oh, I think we've all heard of him. That's pretty cool.
He's deserves all the accolades. He's really incredible. And then I kind of was pulled into the family business. My father and grandfather are judges, so I went to law school. But then I didn't want to be a lawyer, so I followed my dream, which was to work in the film industry. So I went out to LA. I worked at a talent and literary agency in the story department. That was my first job, is reading a lot of bad scripts and writing the equivalent of book reports on them. Then I went on to work for the head of production at Paramount Pictures and MGM, and I got to see how movies got made. And I was just a little peon, but my bosses were pretty powerful. Then I met and fell in love with a girl and moved to Manchester, England, where she was from, and started a real estate company because that's what you do. But eventually I found my way back, and I was really frustrated because real estate was not creative at all. And I went to go work for a design agency in Manchester that did websites and logos and brand. And that's kind of where that journey started. And when I moved back to the States and worked for a brand marketing agency, and then started my own company about 7.5 years ago, where I said, what do you need? And that's evolved to what I provide is visual stories. So I produce video and animation to help businesses share that with their audience, whether that's for marketing on TV or any digital platform, social media, their websites, onboarding, all that good stuff. Basically, anywhere they need to communicate effectively to get people to do something. That's what it's all about, taking that action.
Okay, very cool. So your agency then is creating the content for your clients, correct?
Correct.
Okay, very cool. What kind of content, do you have a style? Is it all like?
So I think we do actually. So for the live video, a lot of it is a combination of talking head and B-roll. So we'll go and interview people. My job is I'm an interviewer. So I go and I try and ask questions to get those sound bites out of people, so that when you remove me from the video, they're saying what they need to say to communicate effectively. And then the other thing is animated video is probably what we lean on most. And the process is to really figure out what's the story that we want to tell. And with animation, you can do anything in terms of what you visually show, which I love the freedom to be able to be like, okay, when someone jump over a building or turn into whatever it is, it doesn't whatever the imagination can come up with. But it's really important to understand. In my book, I refer to as the 11th commandment, which is to know thy audience. And so we kind of reverse engineer. It's like, what is the problem of your audience? And how does your product or service help solve that? And then let's tell that story, because that's what's going to matter to them.
Yeah, 100%. I second that. Absolutely. So who are your common, who is your target audience? What kind of businesses do you typically work with?
Yeah, so there's two main buckets. So I work with other marketing agencies that don't do video or animation, and I serve as a resource for them. They have a client, they bring me in and say, hey, we have a client who needs this. And then I work for either the business owner or the marketing professional. So the CMO or the director of marketing. And it's usually middle markets is kind of our target. But we've worked with, a variety of clients from small, medium-sized businesses It really is a matter of someone who appreciates what good content can do. So not everyone's my client. I always like to say, saying no to people is important. And there's a distinction that I talk about, which is the difference between convincing someone that they should buy into what you do and educating them. So if someone doesn't believe in animated video, no matter how much I show them samples, they're not gonna be like, oh, now I get it. No. So it has to be someone who's like, well, tell me more. And then that's when you kind of engage and then show them and they go, oh, that's kind of, I can see this and I can see that. And so it's it's making sure you connect with the audience people. Not everyone's your audience. And so it's about knowing who your audience is and then sharing what you do to hopefully engage with them.
That's awesome. So I think you've got something else that you're offering as well these days to more than that, right? To the people who are not quite at a medium-sized business looking to hire an agency, but they see the value in great content, right?
Yeah. So for a lot less money, you can just buy the book I wrote. Because the book I wrote is geared towards anyone who's looking either to start from scratch, they don't know where to begin, they started a new business, or they've been in business and they're like, it's not quite working, I need to be more consistent, I need to have a plan. Because a lot of people are like, you're busy running your business, whatever that may be, and that's your focus. And so content marketing is not necessarily your expertise or what you focus on. And so my hope with this book is to help people have a shortcut and have some of the materials they need to then start being more effective at creating their content and distributing it and having a foundation for being able to be more consistent.
That's awesome. So what are some tips or strategies that you can share with folks when it comes to content creation?
Again, the 11th commandment, know thy audience. So the first thing I would do is write down everything you know about your audience. What keeps them up at night? What do they care about? There's a tool that I have in the book called the story pad. If you go back to Aristotle, way back when, he's credited with the 3-act structure: beginning, middle, and end. And so I tell people, like, yeah, okay, beginning, what do I say? So I created something called the story pad, where the PAD represent the beginning, the middle, and the end. So the P is the problem or pain of your customer. Start there. What is it that they're upset about or need help with? And then the A is the simple thing, which is, okay, what's the answer? Your product or service. A lot of people, when they talk about it, that's where they start. They say, you need this and I've got it. But the D, I think, is really critical. The D is for the difference it makes in their life or their business, the impact, the transformation. And a lot of marketers will talk about, you need to be able to paint the picture that you have a problem, I'm going to solve it. And when I do, this is the beautiful thing that it looks like afterwards. Yeah. And so I like to keep things pretty simple. And I think having a structure where you start with, okay, what's the pain of your customer? How are you going to solve it? And what's their life going to look like afterwards?
Yeah, I think that's so important, is that people get caught up in like the what's, and they don't talk about like the benefit. Right. And it's like, you got to sell the benefit. People don't want, acetaminophen 500 milligrams. They want to cure their headache, or they want to bring down their fever. Right. And so I yes to all that.
And I think one of the things in terms of context is understanding that you should be talking about the customer, not your business. A lot of businesses, I think, fail, and they're like, we're the number one, blah, blah, blah. We've been around since 1800, who cares? And I think what I tell people is, and they don't always like to hear it, is nobody cares about what you can do. I'm like, what do you mean know what you can do? They only care about what that you can do for them. Exactly. That what's in it for me, the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
That's the critical part.
Yeah, that it's super important. So when it comes to, because you mentioned distribution, that you cover that a bit in your book. So what are some tips or strategies that you talk about on distributing content?
I hate to sound like a broken record, but part of it's about knowing your audience. So you have to, the greatest currency, and Gary Vee is one who I think really popularized it, for me at least, which is the greatest currency for businesses is attention. Because if you don't have someone's attention, which unfortunately is diminishing often, then they're not going to be able to engage. So if you're thinking about, okay, what's the platform I should be on? Well, where is your audience giving you their attention? That's where you need to be. So that, when these new social media things come up, TikTok or Snapchat, and, the bank's like, should I be on that? And I'm like, well, is your audience on there? Is that where they're spending their time? Because if your audience isn't spending time on TikTok, then
Right.
maybe it's not the right platform for you. So I think it's really reverse engineering, understanding how to distribute it based on where's that group you're trying to reach. Go
Yeah.
there, make it easier.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I've had a very similar conversation many times with folks when they're looking at, because new things come up all the time. The one, consistent thing with the internet is it's always changing, right?
Right.
So there's always something new. There's always a bright, shiny object that just pops up and everyone wants to jump over there. And it's like, well, is that really going to benefit your bottom line? Is that the most use? Because the reality is there's a million things you could do to promote your business. And you have to focus on what's going to have the most impact to your bottom line, because no one has all the time to do everything.
Yeah, with that, I would say, one of the things I often say to people is that, marketing is part art and part science. And
Mhm.
the science part requires a little experimentation. So, yes,
Yes.
there's best practices that you can go and listen and gather from people. But every now and again, you might want to try something different and see how it does,
Yeah.
because even though everyone's like, oh, well, my business all comes from Facebook, and you go and I'm not having any luck with Facebook, and then you try LinkedIn and it works. Great. Don't go against the results is what matters. So it's
Yeah.
about collecting that data and analyzing that data in a way that makes sense, that you can go, oh, okay, for my audience,
Mhm.
this is what they're responding to. And that can be whether it's a different piece of creative, where you do it, time you do it, all those things. People say, when's the best time to post on LinkedIn? Well, it depends.
Mhm.
I don't know. But if most people say, oh, it's, either early in the morning, there was a shift during COVID because people weren't going to work. But the best way is to try out a few times and see what works best. That's
Yeah.
the best time. What the audience tells you is the best
Yeah.
time.
Well, exactly. And we can all have, when it comes to marketing, we can all have educated guesses, especially people who've been around and we've a lot of experience. This is probably gonna, this is probably your
Right.
better picture. This is probably your better story, or this is,
Right.
I think I would start here. But that's a starting point. It is not the
Hmm.
end point. That's where you start from, and then you
Right.
test, because it's never certain until you actually have data behind it. So you put it out there. And so we can give really educated guesses, but that's essentially what they are until we get some data behind what we've put out there.
I couldn't agree more. And it does, right. It doesn't mean like, oh, well, I'll start marketing at 3 in the morning because no one else is doing it then. Maybe not the best idea. Let's at least start with what seems to be best practices and the start as a starting point, and then learning. And that was the second point I want to make, was be curious. I think that's
Mhm.
one of the biggest pieces of advice any business, any marketer can have, and it's about testing to learn. I consider
Mhm.
myself a lifelong learner, and I think everyone needs to be that in order,
Yeah.
because, as you said, things are changing all the time. And so if you don't keep up on it, if you're not interested in learning how people are behaving, what the trends are, and then also at the same time knowing what the foundational pieces are. Just because there's something new and shiny doesn't mean that people stopped being human.
Right.
Um, and so I think it's that balance that you have to have between not abandoning what you know has tried and true, but then applying it to the new, gizmos that are out to help you.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. So what do you feel like is your next step? Like where are you going from here?
That's an easy one for me at the moment. So I have been, I guess, bitten by the bug of AI, and for me, it's I decided about a month ago where I like technology. I've always been an early adopter, and then I decided, looking at just around, like I need to. If I don't lean into AI, some other marketer will.
Hmm.
So it was a combination of interest and I think need. I think people
Hmm.
need uh, to recognize this is a game changer. This is something
Yeah.
that's and I think right now a lot of people are suffering from what one of my colleagues called is AI overwhelm.
Hmm.
Um, and it's I get emails constantly about this new AI tool and this that, and there's every day in the news there's 8 stories about this, that, and the other. And so I stopped and said, okay, I need to kind of take a breath and start from, as you said, start from the beginning point. And for me, that was
Hmm.
education. So I took my first LinkedIn Learning certification, and I'm starting to build on those, going to webinars, and being interested in, so what's this all about? And also recognizing what's valuable for me and my business, as opposed to what's going on in the world.
Right.
Just because there's the AI experts maybe talking about this high level part, that's not, AGI, is not something that's going to be relevant to me unless I'm worried about, the machines taking over and killing us all, which I'm not. Um, but how can I use this right away? And that's the thing, it's moving so fast that
Yeah.
one of the things that I think I'm pretty good about is taking a lot of information and synthesizing it to then make it
Mhm.
palatable for other people. One of
Yeah.
the things that people have been telling me about my book is it's easy to read, easy to understand, easy to implement. And I think that's something that I've always tried to do is like making things accessible for people, because
Mhm.
the experts often talk in ways that you don't know what they're talking. And so where's their value to you if they can't share it in a way that you're going to be able to implement and make use of? And so
Yeah.
my feeling is I have an opportunity, I think, to really lean into AI to use for my own business, but also to be able to use it to help others. And
Yeah.
so I joke my next book is going to be when AI meets the content beast. I
Ah.
already have an idea for like the when Harry met Sally, they're on the couch at the AI content beast, and then the AI. So we'll see. But it's something that I'm going to start writing about and start thinking about. It's my wife thinks I'm a bit obsessed at the moment, but one of the things I say is, in spite of me wanting to really lean in to AI and marketing, I
Mhm.
think some of the foundational pieces, I don't take my book and throw it in the trash, because some of those fundamental things are really important about knowing your
Yeah.
audience. Now it's about how to use the tool that is AI to improve how you approach these things.
That's awesome. So if people want to learn more about you, where do they find you?
Uh, Easiest place is probably LinkedIn. That's where I spend most of my time and I share most of my thoughts. Then there's my as a speaker, ggklein.com, because I speak at conferences and corporate things. So when people are interested in that, they can find me there. And then my website for my business, 9dotsmedia.com. And then anything related to the book, I have a book site called thecontentbeast.co. So you can
There
learn
we go.
about it, order it, all those good things. Um, so that's, yeah, reach out to me.
Perfect. That's awesome. And you have a freebie for folks?
Yeah, it's kind of an advanced bonus. So one of the things I tried to do with my book is provide a bunch of bonuses for people.
Mhm.
Um, Things that are in the book that they can download and fill in and all those things. And the most valuable one, I think, is I created a 21-day content marketing playbook. And so it is about where to start on day one,
Mhm.
where. And so it's a workbook that you can fill in, and it tells you what to do and to really get started, or to get organized. And so I'm sharing that as a freebie for people to just go and get it right now, where they can start using it.
Awesome.
So that's the 21-day the content beast 21-day content marketing playbook.
I love it. So wherever you're watching this, above or below, there'll be some words, some description for this video. Go ahead and check out all the links will be there. Thank you so much for being with us, Geoffrey. This has been so much fun.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.